Hey everyone, I'm Rob Espero with the Viral Volley podcast, and we are in our introduction or our first ever episode of our Collegiate Beach Volleyball Update, or College Volleyball Weekly, as I like to call it. But we're calling it the Coast to Coast Report. And fittingly enough, representing the right coast and the Florida State Seminoles, you have Mads Fitzpatrick. Uh, if you're not familiar with her, she plays at the number 2 with Alice Zeman last year and ended the season with Maddie Anderson, 10-3 overall. Junior blocker from Tallahassee. Thanks, Mads, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And great to have you. And I did not know this, but there's a connection between Mads and our other contributor, Charlie Ekstrom, a 6'1" junior blocker from Point Loma, California. Met her playing with the Bulldogs of Point Loma. Is that right? Was it the Bulldogs?
The Pointers.
Pointers, the Pointers at the California State Championships for indoor. She went 7-6 overall with partner. The number 1 spot was Sunny Villapando, but most wins for a pair in her for the 8th season at Stanford University. Thanks for joining me, Charlie.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Hey, I'm looking forward to this year because coming off a pretty wicked 9, 10, 11 months of COVID now, everyone's looking forward to seeing some volleyball. So before we get into the meat of our conversation, I wanted to get a status of training for your teams for the upcoming season. And we'll start at the right coast with Florida State's Mads Fitzpatrick. What's happening there in Tallahassee?
Yeah, so we're all just really careful. We do the training like normal, like we're training as much as we usually do, but we wear our masks all the time, and we get tested once a week now.
Okay. How about you, Charlie?
So as of right now, we actually are not currently training on Stanford campus. We were all at home for fall, with a lot of us kind of localizing in Southern California and training as much as we could together. At the present moment, we have a move-in date of January 23rd. And we're hoping that all things run smoothly. And once we go, we have a pretty standard protocol of, I think, testing 2 or 3 times a week, as well as we'd be going into full training blocks right after our quarantine ends.
Right. Now, are you finding any challenges, obstacles, modifications, or adaptations for each of your programs? And we'll start with you this time, Charlie.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely been an interesting kind of bump in the road, not having necessarily that fall season to kind of train and bond a little bit as a team, especially with having quite a bit of a younger team this year. I think that something that we're kind of looking forward to is getting all back together and being fully together. It was nice to have a lot of our freshmen in Southern California, and so that we could integrate them nicely into the team. But I think we're really just looking forward to kind of getting everybody all together again, just so that we can be our full selves again.
Right. How about you, Matt, over there at Florida State?
Yeah, so there's been a few obstacles. Like if one of us was around someone who tested positive, like a few days later, we'd have to quarantine. So me and my roommates had to quarantine for 2 weeks, which is hard because, you take 2 weeks off of training and it's just like you lost everything. So that's been a pretty big obstacle. But other than that, we're full firing, ready to go.
Well, now we've got the update on where both of you are at in your programs. Obviously, it changes based on the region of the country that you're in because, for instance, for Charlie in Northern California, where Stanford is located, they're on full lockdown. So, for instance, I just received news that the UC Davis men's basketball team, I don't know if it's official yet, but they won't be coming down because the county is on full on lockdown in Northern California. So doing some wreaking some havoc in basketball. I imagine you're seeing some of that in your other athletic programs for you. And we'll start with you, Mads.
Yeah, our basketball team, they just had to cancel a few games. I've seen it with a couple other teams. It's really, really sad. Like, cause you just have all these high hopes and then something happens and you just have to cancel it. But we're not on lockdown, which is nice. We've been really blessed. Florida is a little bit more relaxed. So we're lucky because of that. But yeah, it's always sad when a game gets canceled.
How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, so similar situation of kind of game cancellations and schedules bouncing around. Some of my close friends are on the women's basketball team actually, and they have been on the road for their entire season except for their first 1 or 2 games. And they're kind of staying on the road because Santa Clara County isn't allowing them to play in it. But there are other counties for other schools, especially in the Pac-12, in which they're able to compete and play in. So they've kind of just been bouncing around from whatever county, whatever school system that they've been able to play in. And I know the same thing happened with men's basketball, and the same thing happened with football before their season ended. They spent their last, I think, month of season on the road.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's jump into our social media tidbits. It's kind of like the more recent news I've been catching through social media. And one of the top pieces of news is, and I'm sure that Mads will appreciate this one, LSU finalizes their roster, was a big announcement this week. Wanted to get your thoughts of what their roster is looking like. Both Jess Schabin-Lantzman and Olivia Powers-Ordenes back, makes their complete return of all the seniors that would have graduated for LSU, which became the #1 team in the country for the first time ever in program history just this last season. Thoughts on that recent news? So we'll start with Charlie.
Yeah, so there are actually a couple of girls from the West Coast, especially and specifically from San Diego, that I kind of grew up with, who are from LSU. So I was kind of hearing the updates back and forth with them. I think that it's an exciting opportunity for their team. I think it's also, I mean, they've got a large team, and I think that that's going to create a very highly competitive and highly exciting environment for them, and kind of gives them that security of, if some girls test positive, or if they have some of the team that has to quarantine, they've got that steady back half of the lineup that's still very solid and still very ready to compete.
Right. How about you, Mads, especially being the rival school of LSU? Thoughts from
Yeah.
your perspective?
Yeah, well, they're stacked. There's no denying that. And they're just so good. And they have so many, like, just like Charlie said, like, some girls test positive. There are girls behind them that can do just as well. So I know it's going to make things really interesting come CCSA conference championships. And honestly, anytime we play them, it's so intense. So those girls just coming back is just going to add to that competition. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, let's go to another rival team. This one for Charlie's rival team, Cal, the Golden Bears. Former coach Megan Owusu, after having triplets, steps down from the program. They bring in interim head coach Derek Olson, and the hiring of Rachel Nieto, former Long Beach State. I believe she played the #2s as an assistant. Thoughts on that hiring, Charlie?
I think that it's really exciting. Again, I think that having, like, knowing the Berkeley girls and kind of playing against them a lot, knowing their coaches, having just this kind of solid rivalry between them, I think it's exciting for them. I think that they love Derek and they trust him, and they're so happy for Megan to be starting her family and to be kind of taking this new chapter of her life. I've heard nothing but good, exciting things about all of the changes that are happening right now.
Right. Anything to add on there, Mads?
No, I couldn't agree more.
Well, it's good. It's a good transition to you anyways, because Florida State had an add-on to their staff this last season that kind of flew under the radar. So Coach Brooke Niles picked up assistant coach. He's only just lightly talented as a coach, Jason Lockhead. He's only the coach of Nick Lucena, her husband, and Phil Dahlhauser. What's that like, having him on board, knowing the kind of coach that you've got now backing Coach Niles up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he is the absolute best. His experience, his professionalism, everything he says is just like little gold nuggets of knowledge. He's just that good. And I trust, like, the team trusts him immensely because of how long he's been playing, who he's been coaching. And when he plays against us, he's like an absolute stud. He could just be out there for hours and hours, just hitting over and over again. He's incredible and a really, really awesome contribution to our team.
Anything to add there, Charlie, to the addition at the Seminoles stronghold there?
Nothing to add. I think it's super exciting.
Mhm.
Well, let's go back to LSU, because a particular pair teamed up during COVID. It's the power team of Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss. I interviewed them both about a month ago, and they were at that point 12-0 in winning tournaments that they've been playing in. Two of them were AVP Next Gold tournaments. One was Atlantic City, and the other was somewhere in Tennessee, I believe. It was Hayden Beach. But this last weekend, they came across an obstacle in the final. A pretty powerful team of, you may recognize them, Larissa and Lily of Brazil. Thoughts on their performance, making it again to the final and going to a third set tiebreak, losing 15-17 in the third for the tournament championship. We'll start with you, Charlie.
I think it's incredible. I think that that's so awesome just to be getting those reps against Larissa and Liliana. Like, I think that it's awesome that they even were getting the reps, let alone competing with them. And I think that that's such an exciting thing, especially just an exciting thing for LSU's program to kind of see their players coming on and taking these like weathered, very incredibly talented Brazilian players and being able to compete very solidly with them.
Yeah. How about you? Anything to add, Mads?
Oh, they've been living the dream, just like playing at such a high level. And they've been so much fun to watch. I know a lot of us who haven't been able to play as much have been like really loving watching them getting out there to compete. And even though they're our rivals, I'm still happy for them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure the AVP Next people love the fact they win these tournaments because they only can accept the amount of money to cover their expenses, and that
Yeah.
rest of it stays with AVP Next. Well, let's look at this upcoming season. 2021 is literally just weeks away, and a lot of people like myself are wondering what's going to happen with the season. When's the projected start? So let's start at the right coast with you, Mads. What's your sense of what's going to happen here?
Yep. So we have like a tentative schedule. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but
Then don't. I want to be sure you stay on good terms with your coaching staff.
but we have a definite or like a pretty definite start time for our first tournament.
Mhm.
And it's coming up pretty soon. So
Okay. How about you, Charlie? Obviously, you're not even back in campus. 23rd was a date you mentioned.
Yes.
This should present some interesting challenges for you.
Yes, so it's definitely a later start than we were kind of anticipating to begin with. But we have a tentative idea of when it's going to start, and we've got this proposed plan of training. We have this proposed plan of preparing ourselves for starting, and we are prepared to start a season. Semi quick turnaround, but we're ready.
All right. Any thoughts on what this season's going to bring with the way it's going to look like? We'll start with you, Mads.
yeah, this season, just like this past year, is definitely going to be ups and downs. Like if someone tests positive and then you trace it back, like you could miss a few games or goodness forbid the national championship. So it's just going to be obstacle after obstacle, but we're definitely prepared for it. We're just kind of remaining positive right now. And we know that no matter what happens, it all happens for a reason. And we're prepared for whatever comes our way.
All right. How about you? Anything to add, Charlie?
I think Matt said it perfectly there. I think that something that we've been trying to practice is cautious optimism. So we're cautiously optimistic about what's to come, and we're excited for the possibility, and we're excited to have a season and to be able to compete again. But like we said, we're cautious about it because we also know that there is kind of the reality of the moments right now. And
Yeah.
so we're just looking forward to what we can get.
Even just from the sense I've been getting from what's happening with NCAA basketball, it seems a lot of teams are staying local or regional. Is that the sense of what both your teams are potentially going to do this 2021 season? We'll start with you, Mads.
No, I think we're fully prepared to travel, and I don't think we're going to stay local.
Wow, that's good to hear. I'd
Yeah.
love to see Florida State out here on the West Coast. How about you, Charlie?
I think we're staying semi-local. I think we're traveling along the West Coast. I don't see us making a big East Coast trip or necessarily making we always would have a Hawaii trip. And last year the week after season was canceled was supposed to be our trip to Miami to play. And I don't necessarily see that as something that's going to happen for us this year. I'm personally am not opposed to the idea of it, but I think it's really what the Pac-12 will allow us to do and really what our university administration will allow us to do and compete in.
Right. Well, I was scouring some of the top sources I go to on the internet, and I came across a discussion thread in Volley Talk, and it appears that 6 D1 teams already have their schedules ready to go. Central Arkansas, Houston Baptist, New Orleans, Stetson, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, UA and UAB. For D2 teams, Erskine, Spring Hill College, Tampa, and Tusculum. And it appears they're going to have a 20 to 30 dual schedule already set to go. So, and I went to all the Big West, Pac-12, the CCSA schools as I could in preparation for this, and I didn't see anything. And my guess is some big announcement is coming up here in the next few days. Do you get that sense on your sides, of the, I guess, your regions of the States, Charlie?
I think that we're kind of anxiously anticipating the schedule releases and kind of anxiously anticipating what the Pac-12 is going to say comes for us. Um, Now that we have our athletics teams coming back, like slowly but steadily in waves, I think our first wave of athletics teams moved back either yesterday or today. And then our second wave is when our team comes along. And so we're trying to hopefully jam pack all 36 Stanford sports into their seasons in the next 6 months. And so I think we're kind of anxiously anticipating what the Pac-12 says will be allowed and what will occur with it.
Right. How about you, Mads?
Yep. We get back started this Saturday, and so I'm pretty sure they'll be releasing the schedule soon.
We'll be looking for that tweet right from your account, Mads. Okay, let's jump back and look back at what there was of 2020 in our year of review for the East Coast and West Coast. So Stanford finished number 19 in both the AVCA and the DIG poll. Florida State to number 2 in both those same polls. Let's start with you, Charlie. What are your thoughts on the 2020 season, even though it was abbreviated?
I think with the abbreviation came kind of an inability necessarily in our standings to kind of have the ability to jump, which I think that we're kind of excited to be an underdog yet again and to kind of come in that underdog situation and maybe get some solid upsets. I was really stoked with the level of competition that we were playing at right when season got canceled. And so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to hop in and compete at yet again another high level and kind of potentially knock off some of these higher ranked teams that we've got in the Pac-12 or on the Big West side. It could be exciting.
All right, you, Mads.
Yeah, I was super proud of our team. I think we were 12-1 last year, and I feel like we were just really getting into it. Everyone was getting into their groove. We were finding out good pairs. So I was really proud with our level of play as well. I feel like we had a ton left in the tank. So that was disappointing, but all of our seniors are coming back. So it's just more fuel to the fire.
Well, that's actually an awesome segue for the next question, which is a preview of the 2021 squad, because we're going to stick with you, Mads, because I noticed in this last Tampa Bay Beach Bums New Year tournament, in the first round of playoffs, a team that lost to Lily and Larissa was one of the new additions to your program, Tori Van Winden and Sarah Putt. I didn't get the scores, but quite the add-on. Can you talk about this upcoming season and what the outlook is for the Seminoles?
Oh, yes. Tori is a huge, awesome contribution to our team. Big block, awesome person, fantastic player, really physical. We have all of our people returning, a bunch of good new freshmen, another really awesome transfer, and it just feels like we're the most stacked we've ever been. So I'm very optimistic. If I like had to write down or say like our top people, I would just literally list the entire team. Like everyone is just too good.
I like it. All right, Charlie, I know that you're coming back, obviously, but I really felt like Andrew's doing some really good stuff there at Stanford. There's definitely a trend upward for your squad. And honestly, from an individual standpoint, one of the things I've realized is your serve has become wicked, even more wicked than when you were playing indoor when I first met you. So can you talk about your Stanford team?
Thank you so much. First off, on the serve comment, that's been something that we've been working on for a while. And I'm glad to see that kind of the execution is coming forth in being seen as well. But I'm super, super excited for our team this year. I think we've not only kind of got that foundational, we've got some solid returners coming back, but we've also got this amazing group of freshmen that I just absolutely adore. And I'm so excited to kind of have them added into our team. I think that's something that we've been searching for is kind of a depth to our roster. And I think our coaches have done such an incredible job. And we're coming into the next couple of years with these amazing recruiting classes. I think our recruiting class was labeled like the one that came in this year was, I think, number 3 or 5 or something like that. And it really shows. They came in and they were ready to play with us, and we are ready to play with them.
It's so good to hear. I love seeing the level of competition, especially now in Collegiate Beach, because you're seeing the talent being spread across the different regions of the country and from different states and at different programs. So it's making it nice and competitive come Gulf Shores or championship time. Which this is a piece I'm most excited about because both of you are in the game. You've probably seen a lot of these players competed against them or played with them, but from coast to coast, what pairs or names should the collegiate beach fan be looking for this upcoming season? Or what would be your preseason All-America selections? What would your watch list, we'll call it? We'll start with you, Mads.
Yeah, for the East Coast, Elena and Molly, they went 13-0 last year. Incredible run. They're both really good from FSU. Claire and Kristen from LSU, they went 12-2. They're always amazing. Erica and Mac from FAU, they're ones. I think they went 8-2. So those are just three really solid pairs that are really good.
They're on your watch list, huh?
Yes.
And on your target as well while you're at it. Since How about you, Charlie? What are you checking out there?
Yeah, so I think going back and looking at kind of what Mads was talking about with so many people returning, I think that there's I think collegiate beach volleyball for the next couple of years is just going to be incredibly stacked, and I'm so excited to see it. Some teams that come to mind right off the bat are UCLA, Savvy, and Abby. They did an excellent job last year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they produce this year. I'm looking forward to also seeing USC. Tina is back, and Haley Harward is back. And with the addition of Julia Scholes, those are three players that just instantly come to mind, along with Sammy Slater as well. They're kind of four players that I think will be going neck and neck with each other, and all are incredibly great opportunities for a watch list to be produced. I think there's also, goodness, I feel like the West Coast is kind of just like, with all of these returns, we're just kind of just stacking more and more. And I'm really excited to see kind of what we all can produce.
Well, one of the names that you dropped that will be interesting to watch is Tina Gradina, because she's also representing Latvia in the Olympics. I wasn't sure if she's going to be playing for SC or just training in LA for the Olympics, but that's going to be a huge factor for that SC program. So now looking at Gulf Shores, if you had to pick teams that would vie for the top 8 spots to get in, what teams would you be dropping? And we'll start with you, Charlie, so I can take some pressure off of Mads off the bat.
So I think I can start with kind of sticking to the West Coast. I think a name that's kind of been in the names for so many years and has won national titles, but I think this year is coming out for blood, is USC. I think that they've got some stacked freshmen coming in with Delaney Maple and Megan Kraft. And I think that they've got, with the addition of Julia, with Haley, with Tina, with Sammy, with all of these incredible players staying with their team, I think that that's a team that's coming out for blood, and they're coming out to win. And I'm excited to see what they can do. I think UCLA is another one that is always ready to compete. And I'm so excited to see kind of what the UCLA roster turns into this year. I've practiced a lot with a lot of those girls throughout the summer and have gotten to know them pretty well. And I'm excited to see kind of what pairs formulate, where they're kind of coming from, because they're always ready. I think another team that on the West Coast is going to be one of two forces to reckon with are in the Big West, of LMU and Cal Poly. I think John Mayer's done an incredible job with that program and kind of building up. And LMU's kind of started to make a name for themselves. And then with Todd Rogers and Cal Poly, I think that that's another school that they made it to the last NCAA championships. And I think that they're hungry for more.
Right. And being that Matt, you're on at the CCSA, some of the two teams that seem to always catch my eye are Stetson and South Carolina. I feel like they're pressing the top of the CCSA. Can you comment on any of those other like bubblish teams that could get in?
Yeah, for sure. Stetson and who was the other team? Oh, South Carolina.
South Carolina.
They're both like underdog teams, and then they play you as hard as they possibly can, and that's makes for some really good competition. So I could definitely see them vying for a spot at Gulf Shores. Grand Canyon, I know that's not on the East Coast. We haven't talked about them yet. They're actually really, really athletic, and they've got some really good athletes. Yeah, there's a lot of really good CCSA teams like rising up and vying for those spots.
Right. Now, more on the West Coast side, I was actually going to mention Grand Canyon. So great lead in there. The Lopes, Tegan DeFalco and Ella Bauman at their number ones is a good pair, but also another couple schools to be on the lookout. You mentioned Loyola Marymount, but there's also Hawaii with a coaching change. They, unfortunately let Jeff Hall go, and So that program, another strong program, but some people transferred out of that one. You still have Pepperdine. What are your thoughts on what's happening on the West Coast, Charlie?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of been a season of changes on the West Coast. I think that there have been a lot of coaching kind of rearrangements, or like just programs building and programs fighting. I love that Mads brought up GCU, because I feel like they're an underdog school that kind of gets forgotten at times, and they're a team that loves to fight. And I think that they're always ready to compete at their highest level for every game. And I think that that's like such an awesome feature to have. You mentioned Hawaii, and I know that the Hawaii girls are working with their changes, and that they're working hard with them too. They're all back, they're all working, they're all training. And I
Mhm.
think that, yeah, I don't know. I think West Coast, amidst all the changes, is really ready to compete, really ready to just get back out here. With all our shutdowns, I think everybody is hungry.
Well, it's so good to hear because as a fan of the game, I'm looking forward to seeing all your teams compete this upcoming 2021. So make the announcement here, but it's been awesome to get the news that both Charlie and Mads have agreed to stick on and do our college volleyball weekly coast to coast edition, which will cover collegiate beach most Mondays. We'll say that because we know some Mondays are off during the spring here. So thankful for both Matt Fitzpatrick of Florida State and Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford University. Thanks for coming on to our first episode of College Volleyball Weekly, the Coast to Coast Collegiate Beach Report.
Thank you. You're the best.
Thank you for having us.